This simple technique is a great way to cook potatoes at home. Okay, so we're gonna make Dauphinoise potatoes today. Probably you ask every different chef, everyone's got a different recipe, but I'm gonna talk you through how I was trained by my old man. A little bit of cheese, only a tiny bit. Double cream, splash of milk. We've got a grated potatoes here. We're gonna thinly slice. Then we've got a little bit of nutmeg, salt, pepper, and fresh garlic. So I'm gonna start off making my cream mixture. Then we're gonna season it generously with salt. Remembering that you wanna almost over season the cream because when you put it into potatoes, the potatoes sort of, they take so much, and if you put in just a little bit of seasoning, you'll often find the potatoes really mellow it out. So shitload of pepper, a bit of nutmeg. We'll go some more nutmeg on the top as well. A tiny splash of milk just to loosen down the cream a little bit, but only a little fraction. Garlic. I'm gonna grate it on a microplane so it's nice and fine, then we're gonna finely chop through it as well. Just gonna run my knife through this again to make sure it's nice, so it disperses nicely in the cream. Some people put the potatoes in the cream on the stove and bring it up to the boil and simmer them and then pop it into the tray. Personally, I don't think you get as nice a finish on the texture. We're gonna cook this for about 2 or 3 hours, about 120, 130. When you park the potatoes, I often find that it ends up very sloppy. 3 or 4 cloves, obviously a few more if they're a bit smaller, into the cream. And we're gonna whisk this well. Give it a really good mix every time we do the layers as well, just to make sure the garlic is dispersed through. Small taste. Nice. Dauphinoise is on every fucking function menu around the country, but often they're terrible. When you have a good one, you realise how good it can be. But good doesn't necessarily mean complicated. It means done well. So I've got my lovely cream there. So as again, when you taste it, it should be a little bit too salty to be able to palate. As it is, and then obviously once you have the potatoes, which are completely bland and they soak up a lot of flavour. Now we're going to slice our potatoes using a mandolin. We're looking for about probably 2 or 3 millimeters. So thick enough that it holds its shape. If you go really, really thin, you end up like basically mashed potato, creamy mashed potato. So I want a little bit so that as the potato cooks, it holds, soaks up the cream, and you should see still a slightly layered effect. So about 2 or 3 millimeters, I would say. You could do it with a knife. I mean, I do it at home with a knife all the time. You know, if you don't have a mandolin, absolutely fine. It's just obviously in a professional environment, a bit quicker to do it with a mandolin. I always have a go at people in the kitchen for not using the guard. Hypocrite. I've got a real fear of them a little bit. This here will feed 8 to 10 people easily. And for that, I'd probably say you're gonna need about 4 kilo potatoes. It does scale up and down really well. Right, that should be enough. Kept some of the larger potatoes, which we're gonna do on the bottom and the top. So in the middle, we're just gonna use all the smaller potatoes. It doesn't really matter about the layering. Because we're gonna cook it for a longer, slower time, the layers will slowly cook together nicely. So I'm gonna start off by putting all my potatoes, a rough layer of potatoes across the bottom. Now with this, we're really just gonna feel it. So we're gonna go in my first batch of potatoes, probably gonna be about 5 or 6 layers. Give the cream a really good mix, and then pour it over. We're gonna build it up in layers like that, like so. You can see how the garlic is really nicely mixed through. With my fingertips, I'm just gonna sort of level out the potatoes nicely. And then I'm just gonna carry on my next layer. With my fingers, I'm just pushing it down. You can feel where the holes are, sort of where the surface is uneven. And then I'm just going to space it out, make sure the next batch of potatoes I put in is where the uneven gaps are, like so. I'm going to go in with more cream, again mixing it every time. It's a perfect dish to do for like dinner parties or something you can pop in the afternoon, have it ready for dinner that night. Super easy, always quite impressive when you bring it out to the table. So again, as you push the potatoes, you can see the cream coming up over the top. About halfway, which is give or take now. Now I just really want to make sure that there's no gaps. So I'm just, as I push down, I'm sort of just manipulating the potatoes, filling any holes. So now we're about halfway. I'm going to do a thin layer of cheese across the middle. The cheese is just there to help add a little bit of richness, season the middle slightly, and add a slightly different flavour combination. But I don't want it to overpower the flavour of the potatoes and the garlic and the nutmeg. It's all about balance. I always think the worst Dauphinoise is when it's literally just cream and cheese boiled together with a load of fucking bland potatoes. Sorry for swearing. So like just a light scattering of cheese. It's there as a seasoning. That's all you need. And now we're getting close to the top. Now I'm going to focus a little bit more on the layering because I want it to look as perfect as it can. Anyone that stands there and lays up the potatoes like this, like with perfectly layered, is just a fool. Waste of time, makes no difference, and they're obviously just not pushing on hard enough. We're getting close to the top now. So we're going to cook this in an oven. As I said, we're going to start it at 120 in a bain-marie, so we get a nice even cooking. I don't want the sides to be I want the top to be crispy and underneath to be beautiful, creamy and full of flavour, rather than if you roast it in a high oven, which some people do, like you might see in some books, for like 150, 160, all that happens is the outsides go really dry and then the middle becomes really wet. We want the potatoes to actually suck up all the cream. And rather than being really crispy on the side, just have that beautiful glazed top, which will happen over the 2 or 3 hours in the oven. Last few layers. So then I'm gonna, one last final push. And the cream, we want the cream to come over the potatoes by about 2 or 3 millimeters. So just gonna, one final arrange of the potatoes. And then, just make sure it's nice and neat. And then we'll just put a tiny bit more cream over the top, because it's going to reduce slightly as it's cooking. As it cooks, the potatoes are going to rise up slightly. So with a flat spatula, we'll just, as it cooks, we'll just keep pushing it down so the cream comes over the potatoes, and you get that beautiful, like reduced cream caramelized top. So to finish it, just a little bit of fresh pepper on the top, and a final little grating of nutmeg. That looks like a very good start. So as I said, oven 120. So I've got my potato in a bain-marie here, just to make sure we get a nice even cook. In we go, night night baby. 125. We'll give it a good 45 minutes before we check it the first time, and then give it the first press. So first, that 45 minutes is up. Oh! Father would be proud. So the cream is obviously still, the top is starting to go crust up. Nutmeg's smelling beautiful. So now what I want to do is, I'm just going to push the top down so that the cream, so the potatoes are just lightly pressing, so you don't end up with any sort of like loose potato underneath. I don't want to push too hard, I'm just gently pushing so the cream sort of, any unreduced cream is just kind of seeping over the sides. And then that kind of softens the top, meaning we can cook it for longer. Just like that. Slowly pressing it all over. And I'm going to do this probably 2 or 3 more times. And otherwise, it just means that when you're finished, all the cream underneath is beautifully reduced and soaked into potatoes, rather than having like a loose, slodgy mess underneath. Okay, so we're going to take this out now. This has been in for about 2.5 hours at 120. Oh, freestyle. Oh, chef. Yeah, so here's got Dauphinoise potatoes. Obviously got a nice little crust on the top. Potatoes are beautifully soft. You can just run a knife through it to see how it's cooked. As you said, this should feed about 8, maybe even 10 people comfortably. This will sit here warm for a couple of hours, no problem. You can just run it through the oven or under the salamander, under the grill, just to finish it off and warm it through. Let's see how it looks. Simple, classic. What more could you want?